Welcome back to the Fear
and Beer podcast,
where we discuss all things Halloween Horror Nights, horror movies,
and just a little bit of beer.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Seamus.
Like scary movies.
Uh-huh.
Here's Johnny.
It's alive. It's alive. It's alive.
Did you miss me? Aren't you drinking?
I never drink. Why?
Before we get into tonight's episode, we want to remind all of those listening on Apple Podcasts to drop us a 5-star review. It helps us grow as a podcast and build our audience. If you're listening on Spotify or any other platform, follow us, and don't forget to share with friends and family who might have a little bit of the strange in them as well.
And while you're on those socials, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, be sure to find us, Fear and Beer Pod. Give us a like, share, and you can always message us. We love to interact with all you guys. Speculation map time. Huh? Not real speculation map. Fake speculation map.
Our speculation.
Our speculation map. But not for a real event. It's been a while since we've done one of these, so if you're newer to the podcast, feel free to jump back into our catalog. We've done
a couple of them
at this point.
Actually, we did a couple era.
Yeah, we've done some eras.
But I thought we did another one. I don't remember. It's been so long. We've done too many episodes.
Scare
already.
zones that should be houses.
Oh, yeah, we did do that.
We did 80s horror. We did 90s speculation map, and we figured might as well
80s.
keep the trend going, and let's hit the 2000s.
Yeah, this is harder than we thought it was going to be.
Yeah, so if you have listened to our past episodes about those, we've plucked some stuff like pop culture stuff, games, toys, and kind of converted them into houses, but man, the 2000s kind of were boring.
Yeah, they really were boring.
There wasn't much.
Just shitty decade.
Yeah, it was like the introduction of social media.
I mean, for the obvious reasons, but also for a lot of reasons that there just weren't a lot to do. It wasn't a lot going on.
No, it was that weird transion of like.
I mean, our
technology
Patriots dominated the 2000s.
Right? We could have done the Patriots.
Yeah, no, they suck now.
but
no, it's fine.
We could have done like it was just a weird transitional period from technology being almost as like a toy to a necessity. You know, social media.
You also made a good point that a lot of the 2000s is a lot of bleed over from the 90s.
Yeah.
So a lot of the things we'd come up with, they'd be like, yeah, that's great, but it was kind of a 90s thing.
It was more 90s
than a 2000s thing. So all you 2000s babies, you suck. I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. Don't leave because of that. Your decade was pretty bad, though.
Yeah, it wasn't the best. I mean, it was fun, but it was...
2010s weren't great either. But
yeah, that's... that
ended well, let's just say that.
Yeah, the decade's going to be... that one's going to be fun to touch. But, so for this one, like we said, we mostly pulled IPs. IPs of movies or shows or something that was out from 2000 to 2010 was kind of our cutoff. But we did it. We pieced together what could be a fun event. It's definitely not our best. We didn't have a lot to work with. Those 2000s horror movies, like, it was just a sea of mediocrity.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's nothing but remake. I mean, not that it isn't like that now, but, like, we didn't get a lot of the... Like, there wasn't a lot of, like, the Hereditaries or
that
the
new
Witches or just, like, some of that
later.
new, like, A24 style, Blumhouse style, like pseudo horror. It was a social commentary style horror.
Those are just all very okay movies, like that whole time.
But we all thought it was great because we were teenagers.
Yeah,
and stupid.
I mean, looking back, I'm like, man, I think I have a lot of these on DVD, but I don't think I've ever watched them. Like the movie we have on right now. This is not part of our map.
I've never seen this,
but it's The Cave
from 2005.
2004, one of those. But it's just like. Not good.
Is this the one with the vampire monster things?
I honestly, the last time I probably watched
it was 2004. That's The Descent. Excuse me. The Descent was actually pretty good.
The Descent was on the list until about 30 minutes ago.
Right. It was pretty good. Really claustrophobic.
But before we dive into that, let's crack into some beers because these things are getting a little...
I'm a cheap bastard and I haven't brought beers, so I owe Nick beers.
We're tapping into the fridge.
So we're gonna tap into whatever he's got left in his fridge.
So these aren't, I don't think, even vaguely related to 2000s horror.
No. Mine's got a weird looking Ronald Reagan face on it.
Yeah, so there's that. For me, this one is I forgot this one's 12% alcohol. That's awesome. This is the Vagabond.
We recorded at your house, so you can get drunk.
Vagabond Breakfast. It's an Imperial Breakfast Stout, but it's a blueberry flavor.
That sounds
blueberries, maple,
blueberry stout,
coffee, all kinds.
Oh, that's
of stuff.
weird.
Let's see.
I'm not sure how I feel about that.
And
Blueberry in a stout.
Yeah. Let's see. I can't even find. Oh, so it is brewed and canned by Casa Agria Specialty Ales from Oxnard, California.
I think I've heard of them before.
So this one, I think I purchased this one over at the Half Barrel Project because I was
okay.
It looked cool.
Yeah,
It's,
and they've
it's,
got
it's,
some.
It's pretty cool. It's got a little RV on it.
Yeah,
I'll come show you.
We've talked about Half Barrel before. They're pretty good. They do their own stuff, but they're also pretty known in this area to carry like some decent selections from all over the country. So that's kind of cool that you found them from California.
It's a fun little can. So I figured, why not?
Yeah, and I'm just having an Elysian. So if you know Space Dust, that's like their big one. That's Elysian. This one's called Contact Haze. Has nothing to do with horror at all, except for the fact that it's got a weird looking Ronald Reagan Easter Island like head thing on it. But it's a hazy IPA, and I'm always down for hazy IPA.
Those are always good.
And I think I've had this one before anyways, so nothing too special. But
This thing is dark.
I don't get the good beers when I don't bring them.
This thing looks like motor oil.
Well, that's when you know it's a good stout.
This is, again, I'm gonna have to come show this thing because this thing is dark. You can see that it looks just like motor oil, thick. It just looks like chocolate milk. Whew. Ooh, but man, that blueberry smell is pretty apparent. You can see how it's just falling in.
Yeah,
it looks like chocolate sauce.
Yeah, it's got.
You almost want to stir it up.
It's got a dark head, and I can actually smell it from here.
Yeah,
it's strong. I still think it's really weird to have a stout with. I mean, it's a breakfast stout, so
yeah.
I mean, they've been. I mean, you can. It's not a new thing. This isn't an uncommon thing. Breakfast stouts are a real thing, but I haven't seen too many with blueberry in it.
Yeah,
so it might taste like a blueberry pancake.
I'm in. Well, cheers.
Cheers, good
Another
sir.
fun speculation
To the
map ahead of us.
2000s.
To the 2000s.
To our childhood.
Maybe forever be drinking because of it.
So,
Okay.
why don't we get into some houses? Is it pretty good?
Yeah, not bad. I can down with it. 12% can only have a couple of these things.
You'll be stumbling home. I mean, with your home right there. But
yeah, I'll put on my Oculus and I'll slam into a
I was
wall.
gonna say, play Oculus after having a couple of those things.
I'll throw up everywhere. So, let's get into some houses. We're going to start this thing right off. So we got 10 houses, 5 scare zones in one show.
And bear with us if we don't go into a ton of detail, because, like I said, this is kind of thrown together.
Yeah, some of these are more vague than others. Some of them I actually have some ideas in my brain somewhere. I don't know if I'll access them in time, but some of them were more just like, oh, I remember that. It probably could work. Fuck it, I'm going to throw it on there.
And we've got pretty much all, like, IP.
Yeah, and I tried to do stuff that I don't particularly remember being there. Obviously, one heavy hitter that was from the 2000s is Saw, but we've seen Saw.
We've seen Saw.
So I tried to pick around, or we tried to pick around some of the other ones that we have seen before, because there's no point in rehashing that. You know, they were good houses, and then we'll just leave them as that. But these are kind of our own 2000s. So the first one, I'll just go off the list we got. We would hit or check off the box of the possession style houses, priests, demons, stuff like that, and we're gonna go with the Exorcism of Emily Rose, which was from 2005. And again, a lot of these movies I feel like were very mediocre, and I probably haven't visited them in about 15 years. So
no, it's safe to say.
Forgive me if my filter isn't as.
This movie was pretty mediocre. I mean, I think what's interesting about it was that it was like more of a. It was a horror, like a horror movie in a way, or a possession movie in a way, but at the same time, it was also a police or a court procedural movie.
It would like bounce back. It would be
so
a great Netflix series now.
Yeah, I mean, it would be almost like it's one of those movies that, like, if you haven't seen it, you should give it a once.
At least I'll watch.
If it's on a streaming service, don't buy it. Don't go pay for it. But like if it's on Netflix, which I don't know if it is.
Sure,
or not,
it's on.
It's on something,
yeah.
But
maybe Hulu.
I don't know. Give it a shot if you haven't seen it. Again, it's like any other possession movie. At the end of the day, weird contortionist moves. And
yeah.
I think what made this movie really cool was that the girl, the actress that played Emily Rose, did a lot of her own like I don't want to say stunts, but like when all the contortionist stuff.
Yeah.
She actually did that.
Okay.
It wasn't animated or it wasn't CGI or anything like that. She did all those like weird bends and shit. So that's kind of messed up and cool at the same time.
Yeah.
But as a house, I mean,
There's different stages.
yeah,
you can
I mean,
go
it's
through.
pretty
I
self-explanatory.
know there's a cool barn scene.
Yeah.
Obviously, the possession style stuff, and it's just
the dorm room.
it would be the
with
dorm room.
The girl
Yeah.
doing like the weird
Yep.
bendy thing.
It would be one of those quicker houses. We've had possession houses before. I figured it's a pretty good scare style house, so might as well check that box of possession movies if we have it at our disposal.
It's a lot of easy,
We do.
a lot of cheap stuff you can get out of it,
Yep.
and I don't think it's necessarily something that's like. It's not going to be a draw, but it's also kind of a. It's a little bit of a deep cut for
It's
the
a
2000s.
good filler house, I think. You
Yeah.
know, it's kind of kick-started the 2000s for that
And we've
horror
got
movie.
we definitely have bigger.
Things on here.
Things on here
This
than
would
that.
not be like the headliner house, and again, like we said, it's a lot of IP based stuff. So
Right.
there's better IPs than others. I don't think we have really a full on original idea. There's two that really aren't movies, and two that are compilation style houses. So we'll get into that. So why don't you tackle the next one? Because I know that this is
So this is something that's
your
up,
alley.
Yeah, this is something up my alley. So we know in the 2000s there was this big, somewhat of a run, or they were starting to do a run of Americanizing or making American versions of Japanese or J-horror movies
Yeah.
from the 90s and early 2000s. So obviously the big two are The Ring and The Grudge, both really good movies. I honestly, I have to,
They hold up.
I have to admit they hold up. The Ring is a guilty pleasure. I know that some people didn't like it as much as Ringu, which is the Japanese version, but I still think that it was actually a pretty decent homage to
Yeah.
the original movie.
Oh, yeah. When I saw that, it was like the scariest movie I've ever
Yeah,
seen. I
and-
mean, that came out in like 2002, so I was 12 when I saw it in theaters,
It was
which I did see it in
It
theaters.
was pretty. Yeah, we did. We went and saw it in Leominster theaters.
terrifying.
In Mass. It was pretty good. One of my favorite Americanized Japanese horror movies. There weren't a lot of them, but it also kind of brought J horror back into this, or not really back into, like, into the American zeitgeist.
Yeah.
Like it's something that we kind of discovered through those Americanized versions. Obviously, for those that are like super deep into like horror and the genre itself, knew about a lot
Yeah.
of it. But I think as like a general, just public awareness, it
Yeah.
became kind of a thing. And obviously, there's a lot of other really decent J horror movies that you could do at this house. I don't know all of them for
Yeah, but those are the two
But
big
there's a
ones
bunch of
for
like
sure.
I'm gonna butcher the name of it, but it's like The Curse of Noroi.
Yeah.
Noroi. No, I'm sorry,
I've
I
seen
don't
that,
speak
yeah.
Japanese, but it's a really really good movie. Japanese language film. I mean, you know me. I'm
Yeah.
really big into like subtitled
Those ones, like the
foreign
Korean
horror movies.
horror and-
Korean horror
yeah.
is some of the best horror I've ever seen, but
Yeah.
the Japanese horror is really good too. So I think that'd be kind of cool to do like a compilation house.
Yeah.
And not necessarily do just The Ring and The Grudge, but those are like the two big ones that everybody recognizes or remembers.
Yeah.
But I think you could pull a bunch of different things in.
Yeah.
And kind of do like with the Emily Rose one, a lot of just famous scenes.
Yeah.
Like do like the well scene from The Ring, or
Yeah.
the girl coming out of the TV.
Coming out through the TV.
I'm surprised they didn't do anything like at least specifically The Ring
Mm-hmm.
at all before.
Yeah, I mean, and
Because there's so many like good set pieces you could like pull off with that.
you could do like a whole room that's like strictly black and white.
And
That's
static
from the
with
video.
Yeah, with the static noise.
Like
and
you're
everything.
walking through the
Yeah.
or have the entrance walkway to a room, or even the entrance to the first like area,
Right.
having it be almost looking like a TV, having the projections
Yeah,
around
and
it,
then
and
you
you
can-
walk into it, and there's the lady brushing her hair in
Yeah,
the
there's
mirror.
so many things you can do with it.
The
And
chair
then, like,
spinning upside down.
right, and then like with The Grudge, you could do like the stairway scene with the little boy comes down the stairways and there's like noise or whatever
Yeah.
the hell
He,
whatever
like
the hell it is.
pulls, they pull like string out of his mouth or something.
And then there's so many other things you can, and obviously, like I said, we're gonna focus more on those two because those are the big movies. But there are other ones that I think you could do.
It's kind of
And
like
I didn't
how
have enough time to research all of them.
it's kind of like how they had a Blumhouse Productions thing.
Kinda, yeah.
Where you just kind of smash a couple properties in,
Yeah.
and it's fun to go through the different stages of the movies. They don't have to necessarily interact with one another, but you can have, I don't know the kid's name in The Grudge, but was it like Samara or whatever?
Samara was
the
the
girl
Ring.
from The Ring, and then whatever the little boy's
Right.
name was from The Grudge. You can have them separate. They don't. It's not
Yeah.
like a Ring versus Grudge, like
You're right.
Freddy
right.
versus
we
Jason,
could,
but
I guess we could cheat a little bit and bring in some of Audition from '99. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not quite 2000, but like we said, we're cheating a little bit,
bending. We're
bending the
flexible.
rules. But that was also
There
a
are
really,
rules.
really good Japanese horror movie.
Yeah. Well, next up on the list is what I think has potential to be a great,
This actually could be a really good house.
Great house.
Not a great movie,
yeah.
but could actually be a really good
Yeah,
house.
and it's a fun, and the reason why I do like this movie a lot is it's simple.
yeah.
And I know that there's been a lot of stuff around the director. He's a piece of shit. I get it. But like in this instance, and especially for movies, I can separate
we could
artist versus whatever.
We could just have the house and
Yeah.
say fuck the director.
Yeah, but that would be Jeepers Creepers. And for obvious reasons, like the monster villain is super cool. And just from a movie standpoint, it's a simple story. It's very Chainsaw-y vibes, where it's like that hick town, middle of nowhere, no cell service, creepy already without knowing the story.
It's almost like a Scarecrow movie minus the Scarecrow.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
guess,
replacing it
in
with
a
the
way.
creep.
Yeah.
But, you can even mash in, like, Jeepers Creepers 2, where there's, like, the whole school bus area.
Yeah.
And that's how I would do it. I would kind of pick bits and pieces from the series, because it was all throughout the 2000s, I believe. At least 1 and 2 were in the 2000s.
How many were there more than 2?
I think there was
there Jeepers Creepers
just
3?
the 2, and I think they're coming out with another one.
Okay.
Or they're rebooting it or whatever they're doing to it. But, I mean, if you can separate, like me, if not, then that's fine as well. But if you can separate art from artist and, have it not ruin something for you, whether it's a movie, music, whatever, then awesome. But this thing would work well as a house. It's a great, like you said, Scarecrow, very Scarecrow-y vibes.
I mean, we obviously know that style of house has worked in the past.
Mm-hmm.
What was the harvest, haunted harvest, or whatever the hell they called it?
The Realm of the Pumpkin.
Was that the harvest one?
Oh.
I'm talking the one where they
Scarecrow the Reaping.
The Scarecrow the Reaping one or whatever. So you could use that type of
style
without blatantly copying that particular house.
Yeah.
You could do something along those lines.
And especially being an IP, when you do something like that, I feel like it's less like, oh, they're copying Scarecrow. It's like, nope, you've seen the IP. This is what's here.
And I think it's a good excuse for the costuming and set design departments to kind of go ham.
And you could use, and he flies. Right. So, like, you can use those wire scares where, he's flying towards you from the dark. You could use the mirror scares. You could do a set where, like, the wings flap out. Like, behind. There's a lot of cool things. You could do stuff where, like, it's a close-up mask. Like, the mask, like, the jowls open and, like, flare out, like, alien style almost. But it's something that I think could work well, and especially talking 2000s horror, I think we'd be amiss to overshadow that. But I think that would be
it's one of those campy
house.
movies from the 2000s that you almost have to include.
It's fun. It's when you're looking at 2000s horror, it's definitely towards the top of the list of movies from that decade.
So going into the next one. And this one's not a movie-based one, but we got to have our musical artist. So we're going to go a little crazy with this one and, just one of those, like, guilty pleasures. Kind of hope it would happen, but, like, we know it never would. But it would totally work with it. We could do a house specifically a story based around the album, The Black Parade.
Yep.
So have My Chemical Romance kind of
MCR action.
Yeah, have a little. Obviously we got a little MCR in the brain right now because if you know, you know.
Yeah.
But I think it's something like kind of what you had with the Rob Zombie stuff in a way. I know that his house was his movies.
Yeah.
But similar to how they did his Scare Zone or whatever Billie Eilish's house was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Where like the musical artist can kind of take that aesthetic from
the songs,
the music
the
videos, album, whatever it might be, and kind of just go crazy with a house.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily have it be exactly what was on the album or in the music video or whatever, but like kind of take that Black Parade story and expand on it.
Yeah, and make it and I think the door is wide open for that, for like a great potential house. I mean, even just watching
really
the video,
gothic-y horror, like a dark merry-go-round, like horses and stuff like that.
Just really creepy everyday stuff, and especially parades,
like skeleton
with the
bands.
costumes and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and
just so many things you can do with it.
If you look at the music video from their set too, with like their now famous like what they were wearing, the black and white suits and like almost crossbone style stitching, like the costumes already essentially written for you a little bit.
Yeah.
And now all you have to do is just essentially look at the lyrics and pick out and create a black parade and pretty much turn it into something where it's, the masses are coming and it's the story's already there for you. And necessarily this wouldn't be obviously a scary house. This would be just more of
it's
a
an artistic,
artsy
fun
house.
Artsy gothic house.
Yep. And the gothic stuff works. And for me, gothic isn't necessarily scary. It's just like
but it's
fun,
just,
creepy vibe.
It's just a really cool vibe and a really cool theme.
Mm-hmm. So I think, that would definitely check
was
a
never-
lot of boxes.
Yeah.
But next up, we have 13 Ghosts, which I think has been talked about a lot. This is like a constant want, I believe, especially for the past 2 years that we've had this faux horror nights where it's with the barriers and stuff like that. In that instance, it actually would have benefited this house idea, because essentially you're walking into this big mansion and the ghosts are all kind of locked behind these barriers and stuff like that, and all these different murderous creatures, and you just be pulling strictly from the movie. You can make it walking through the front foyer area, you can make it walking through the basement, and about halfway through the house you can see that somebody is a character has opened the doors, and as creatures start to come out, you kind of progress through the house, and obviously it can climax at the end with a big open scene where the mechanism is kind of working and spinning around and getting rid of everybody at that end, but blowing up the house and stuff like that. Obviously we're not gonna blow up the house, but the design of all the different ghosts was really, really cool. And I think that this is a house that has just been, I don't think it'll ever happen because it's just been so long, but
right. And remember,
at some point it should it should have happened.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's a rights thing. I don't know if it was a storyline thing, but
it's also an era. Remember, we said it before. 2000s was the era of remakes. So this is one of many remakes.
Yeah. Yep.
And it was goofy and campy and not really that good. But it had Matthew Lillard in it. It had Shannon Elizabeth. There's a lot of
as the scientist
of that 2000s vibe.
It was very 2000s.
Very 2000s, and some of that stuff is just fun to go back and watch. So I think it would make a really kind of cool throwback retro-y house.
Yeah. Yep.
Even though I can't believe we're saying 2000s is retro, but it was over 20 years ago.
I know, at this point it is.
Gross. And I just came across another movie. We didn't include this on our list, but I'm going to say it because how did I forget this? Why are we not having a Ghost Ship house?
Oh,
remember Ghost Ship from 2002?
Yeah.
The ghost, the skull in the front
I was
of it?
kind of thinking about that / Poseidon.
Yeah!
But
I just completely thought of it. It's completely missed it. But yes, 13 Ghosts would make a fun. It would make a fun.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to explain. We all know the movie's bad. We get it. But it would be fun to just kind of do. And I think the design team would have really good time of just coming up with various gags that kind of mimic the movie or
go along with
that movie. So our next one is, I think, our only not original, but culture.
I'll say that and Black Parade.
Yeah,
this one and the Black
Parade
Parade are kind of the faux originals.
Yeah. So this one, we're gonna do a reality TV house or a Survivor house. Nick, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, Nick has been on a Survivor kick. I think
for the last year and a half.
I think he's watched every season.
I've watched at least 15 seasons in the last 2 years, and there's 40 seasons.
I know, it's stupid.
There's 40. It's there. It's stuck around for a reason.
2 a year. So reality TV, if you don't know, was a big thing in the 2000s, late 90s into the 2000s. Survivor was the one that really made it big, and it kind of brought it into the American consciousness. So I think we could do something along the lines of not necessarily specifically Survivor, but put people on
an
island
house
or something like that. Hey, you're being dropped on an island, and then it turns out there's actual cannibals on the island, or some crazy rich guy that wants to hunt you down or something like that. But you could do a lot of those set pieces, those
tribal council,
right? Your tribal councils, your games to stay alive. You're not getting voted off the island; you're getting voted out of life. Essentially, so that'd be kind of
it's almost like Survivor mixed with Most Dangerous Game and Cannibal Holocaust, just mashed into one. But we would totally rip off the Survivor logo, like the big circle, outwit, outlast, outplay, and it just...
But it'd be like outlive, out survive or something like that.
Yeah. So all I really want to see is like some like evil zombified like Jeff Probst, like snuffing torches at the end. This one was was definitely a big one for me, where I was like, how did I forget about Survivor? How can I make it work as a house? I don't know. I'm gonna put it on the list anyways. I don't give a shit.
We're gonna figure a way to do it.
But it does work as like, we've done like we've mentioned Scarecrow, and the big thing that stands out with me with Scarecrow, and especially Pumpkin Lore, is walking through those areas where it's like the corn stalks and stuff like that. You can do that with beach setting too.
Palm trees,
sand and palm trees, and you can make use fans for fake wind. You can use the scent of oceans. You can do water splashes,
like
stuff
storm
like
noises, like thunder and lightning. All
yes,
that
and it's all about survival too, because it's hard to put yourself in that situation of being like starved and tired and whatever at Horror Nights, because you're gonna be out in 5 minutes, but having that like really isolated feeling is something that would probably try to be pushed through this house a lot. And obviously it's going to be a little goofy because it's like reality team themed or something like that. And the storyline would essentially be trying to be like, put you in the mindset that you were selected for a reality show.
Yeah.
And you get brought here and it's not what you think it is. So that's kind of like the basis of my Survivor wants.
I think it'd be a goofy, fun little excursion.
It would be fun.
I don't think it'd be like.
It's not the best house ever, but
no. But I mean, like we've said before, there's not a whole lot of pop culture-y things we can pull from. And I'm sure we're gonna have a bunch of people who are like, "Oh, you didn't think of that. You didn't think of that." Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I didn't.
But
also, what I think would be cool too in this style house, where I would have it almost branch in pathways, because like you're the one that's choosing. So like I would have like multiple pathways that end up leading towards similar areas.
Like a Mad Lib house.
But yeah, like you almost choose your own adventure kind of thing, where you go left, you go right, you go left. And even if it's not like a your choice thing and you have guides like pushing you left, pushing you right, and switching it. So every time you go through, it's a somewhat different thing. I wouldn't say there's going to be a different thing every time, because that's impossible, because people go through these things 20 times in a night. But it would give it some variation. If you had, 3 different ways you could possibly go at different times, that's 9 different outcomes.
Right.
So it would be a fun way to make one house multiple houses, I guess, because like you just go different variations every single time, which would be fun. All right, next up would probably be the fan favorite,
our comedy
spoofy house. Which, if we're talking 2000s and we're talking comedy, and we're talking spoofs and we're talking horror, there is no other way but doing a scary movie house.
A scary movie, right?
Which, hot off the heels of us talking about Scream for the past 2 weeks and misinterpreting what scenes are in Scream and what scenes are in Scary Movie.
Just make it worse for everybody.
I think this would, it would be hysterical to see a live action Shorty running around.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's just, that movie, it'd be pure comedic genius. It would be vulgar. It would be not appropriate for people under ages 18, or so you'd say, but it would, you could find a way to make it work. And it does hurt it a little bit that it would be pretty much identical to a Scream house, set wise, scene wise.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically the same thing,
but with the characters that are having a Officer Doofy instead of Dewey in the house, like, it's problematic. But if you didn't,
one word for it.
If you watched that movie and did not enjoy yourself, then you need to go take a look at yourself in the mirror.
You don't like fun,
because it is a funny movie. It pokes fun at everything we love, and it's hysterical. It works on all levels, and especially pointing out the stuff from Scream. Like, Scream in itself doesn't take itself serious like the characters don't. This movie just points that out a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's just, it would work.
It's just an irreverent, like, comedy is what it is. And like I said before, like we talked about a couple weeks ago, these movies did something that really kind of, it was a flash in the pan. They didn't stick around very long because they couldn't. I mean, what they were able to get away with at the time is something you couldn't be able to do today, just because you couldn't straight up parody an entire
You just steal the
franchise.
whole movie, yeah.
So
No, that's a little bit tougher.
But it'd be fun. It'd be a fun house. The next one is another combo or
compilation
house.
much like the Blumhouse.
Yeah, similar to the Blumhouse, but in the 2000s, this gentleman was at the height of his game.
Has not come back since.
And I don't know if he's ever
sort of
been. I don't know if he's ever really had a height, but this is, we'll say, the height of his career.
Oh, I love this guy.
We'll do an M. Night Shyamalan house.
Yes.
Yeah. Have you seen the movie Old yet?
I did. And it's not as bad as The Lady in the Water or The Happening, so...
Oh, yeah, I guess so. But either way, M. Night Shyamalan had the career of careers in the 2000s. We got Unbreakable, which is the first of the... I guess we'll call it like the split saga or the whatever you want to call that. And then you've got Signs, which is arguably his. I don't want to say arguably his. No,
his best his best we didn't include because it was 99. But
we could cheat.
We could cheat a little bit and throw it in there as well. The Sixth Sense.
I mean, The Sixth Sense is his best movie.
Yeah.
The problem with M. Night Shyamalan is that once you know the twist in his movies, there's no surprise at this point.
Yeah.
There's nothing really to.
It's hard to rewatch them unless you're me, and I love those movies.
But I think the movies we picked were like Unbreakable, Signs, and The Village. Yeah. And you can say what you want about The Village. I like The Village.
I loved The Village, and up until
I won't say I loved it.
Oh, I loved it. Up until Avengers Endgame, it was the movie I had seen in theaters the most.
That's insane.
I think I saw it like 8 times in theaters.
It's so absurd.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why I was so attached to it, but I thought it was brilliant. And I don't care that like it's stupid, and like I get why people don't like it because like once you get that twist, like
but the twist is so out of left
it
field.
was. But I liked that coming from a place like up in Massachusetts. We had this other place called Old Sturbridge Village.
Oh well, yeah.
When like
if you look at it that way,
and it hit me home where I was like, that would be like, it's cool. I always think about weird things like that. Like there's, especially in Florida too, where there's like thousands of acres of land.
Yeah, is there some weird commune somewhere?
Is there something going like? And I know the answer is no, but like, you could have people just living out there doing whatever. And if they've never been, I mean, you look at some of like we talked about cannibals earlier, but like. Some like native tribes in South America or whatever that have never seen. There is no outside world for them, so they have no idea where we are technology wise, and like it's just a fun thing to think about.
My point is, say what you will about M. Night Shyamalan. At least he tried.
Yeah.
At least he's tried to do.
I will
different things.
Die on the stake of M. Night Shyamalan. I love those movies.
I don't, but I appreciate the attempt. I appreciate his trying to be unique.
Yeah.
I think for a while his twists were novel. Now they've kind of gotten a little weird.
He's run out of them.
But he has this uncanny ability to pick terrible actors for his later movies.
Yeah.
And they just can't.
It's tough. I mean,
like Old was bad.
Old was not good. I mean, and there's a lot of movies in his catalog that are not good.
No, right. The Happening.
Case in point. The Lady in the Water.
I don't know, man.
The Last Airbender.
How's your mother?
It's the trees. The trees did it. Last Airbender were all pretty garbage.
Last Airbender was a completely different.
Yeah.
That's a whole other discussion.
But then he's kind of popped himself back in with some of the other ones.
And again, Split. I thought
Split
was his best movie since
Sixth Sense.
Sixth Sense, like arguably as good as The Sixth Sense.
We might have to have an M. Night Shyamalan episode. All right, but that's for another.
Yeah, that's
time.
another. But either way, the house.
For the
lots
house,
of cool things. Monsters from the Village would be kind of cool.
The Village, the creatures were really cool.
Even though they're fake.
I know that one I did hate, but they had a really cool design.
I yelled really loud. I'm sorry.
They had a really cool design. The house is really cool. You can have the people in the yellow cloaks. That was really fun. And then when you're looking at signs, again, cornfields, mazes, isolation, flashlights.
The aliens are pretty cool looking and stuff like that.
They had a fun design. And, Unbreakable is a little bit tougher to tie in there, but you can do, the Bruce Willis and the green raincoat scene. And then if we're tossing in Sixth Sense, I mean, I see dead people, all the different dead visions he's seeing is great. And you really only need 2 rooms for each movie or so. It's a best of.
Yeah, I mean, it's doable.
Yeah. So, next up is
he deserves some love.
Yeah. Next up is definitely something that's more up your alley with Cabin Fever.
Oh, we can talk about this
So
if you want
I'll let you kind of tackle this one because this one is more your alley than
So,
mine. It's
Cabin
been a
Fever,
long time since I've seen
It's
this one.
another movie that it's not great. It's not the best movie in the world, but I think that talking about creating that sense of claustrophobia in a house, this is kind of one of those things you could do with it. Like the house is literally the cabin
Yeah.
where all these kids are getting sick because they're stupid and obviously entirely too relevant for the last couple of years
Yeah.
too to have a plague house.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, one of those things where the monster is not, you can't see the monster necessarily because it's microscopic.
Yeah.
But I think you could do that. And I think really where the scares are going to come from is the claustrophobia and the level of paranoia that you can kind of do. And then, of course, you can just do a lot of more of those like cut scenes or those scenes from the movie where you've got the girl in the tub and she's shaved her skin off, or you've got a number of other people just deteriorating because of this plague, flesh-eating plague. So that'd be kind of cool. It also kind of gave me, and this is completely different, but Dreamcatcher, the Stephen King movie from the early 2000s, about the butthole monsters, we'll call them. Same idea, lost out in a cabin in the middle of nowhere, being attacked by some random alien bug spore thing. So I think they could both work. Not a whole lot of detail.
Yeah.
But I think just
It would be fun.
like a set dressing type of house.
Yeah.
Like there's not going to be any like visual monsters, but your scare actors are going to be like people like that are suffering from that disease,
Bleeding
or,
out and everything, yeah.
stuff like that. And
Oh,
they
yeah.
got nasty makeup and everything. So.
Yeah, that one could definitely work a lot. And it's been a long time since I've seen it, but a lot of the scenes that you just mentioned kind of triggered the visuals, and it was like, yeah, that makes a lot more sense now than what I initially thought. But again, we're scraping the barrel of 2000s horror. Some of them aren't all going to be winners, but
Right.
But I don't think how good a movie is truly indicative of how good of a house
No.
it could be. I think good movies could make bad houses, and bad movies more often than not make really good houses.
Right. Well, I agree with that for sure.
Yeah. And then the last one, it has been a while since I've seen it, and I think we'd get a lot of similar vibes from the Us house that we had 2 or 3 years ago.
A little bit of
at
the
this
Us
point.
house, a little bit of like Purge, early first Purge.
Yeah, and I think that this is a very, I don't know if it's necessarily a culty movie, but I think it's starting to gain traction as a favorite amongst
I think it's
people.
become more popular in recent years, even though it's not that old. But it's also the genre of home invasion movie. Mm-hmm. We'll get right into it. It's The Strangers.
Yep.
The idea of a home invasion movie, I don't want to say that it's like a niche genre or a niche subgenre, but it's definitely not as popular of a genre.
Yeah.
I think it is popular with a certain group of the fan base of horror, but not everybody's into that.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of good examples of it more recently. Like Hush is a great example of it. I love that movie.
Creepy. Super
Creepy's a
creepy.
great movie. But The Strangers being, I think, 2005, right?
I believe so.
2005, 2006. That was kind of like, it didn't start the genre by nearly at all. I mean, you could argue that like Halloween was a home invasion movie in a way.
Yeah, I mean, technically, yes, yeah.
A lot of slashers were kind of born from that subgenre, but this one I think kind of brought it. I guess you could almost say it's like the Scream of home invasion movies.
Yeah.
In the sense that like it kind of brought it back for a new generation of horror fans. But that one was also really good too because there's really it's really simple. It's like you talk about simple movies. It is beyond simple. It's literally, and they say it themselves. Like the bad guys at the end of the movie say it themselves when they ask, like, "Why are you doing this?" They go, "Because you were home."
Yeah.
And like, there's no other explanation for it other than that.
Mindless, senseless violence.
Yeah, just senseless. It's like to me, it's like what the first Purge wanted to be.
Yeah.
But the first Purge the Purge movies are weird to begin with.
Yeah.
Not to say they're bad. We've talked about the Purge before, but I think they went a little. There was too much to do.
Yeah.
This one was just simple. It's like couple come home. They come home from some like wedding party thing, whatever they were doing.
Yeah.
There's obviously issues between the two of them, and then just for whatever reason, these 3 masked psychos show up and say, we're going to terrorize people and kill them.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as that. It is one of those movies, much like The Invitation, when I watched that for the first time, alone.
You lock the doors and you turn the lights
But
off.
like, even though you know that you lock the doors, you know
Yeah.
that it's still kind of although it is a ridiculous premise or a ridiculous fear that, you know, your house is going to get broken into by random strangers.
Yeah.
But the idea is still there
Oh,
that it
yeah.
could
It's
happen.
in the back of your mind all the time.
I always say that, like, the scariest movies for me are the ones that are based in reality, and this is something that obviously could happen
It's
to
very
anybody.
real. Yeah, there's no paranormal,
And
there's no creatures, there's
so
no
many,
monsters.
So many good shots in this movie that I'm finding it hard to see how we could translate it to a house, but I'm sure we could do it.
Yeah.
There's ways to do it.
I mean,
but, like,
Us was a house, and it was a pretty good house.
Right.
I think. I don't like the movie,
yeah,
but the
Well,
house
there
itself
you go.
was fun.
That's true. But like the shots where, like, you know, you don't like you know, it's you're looking at Liv Tyler's character and you see out of like the corner of in your eye in the blurry shot, and you see one of the masked people kind of
strangers,
like
yeah.
in the darkness, and very much pulled from Halloween and that type
Yeah.
of thing. But it's still really, really scary.
You could use a lot of like mirror techniques, like they did in the Haunting a Hill House
Yeah.
house, where they had like, you know, the mirror, so you're looking at someone and it looks like they're far away, and then as you walk closer to them, they pop out of the corner and they were to your left the whole time, not ahead of you.
Right.
So you could play with a lot of like optics like that, and I think the costumes are really fun too. They're iconic. I think this house would work well as one of those kind of more culty style houses. But that's our 10 houses for the 2000s. We'll run through this all at the end. But let's jump into our scare zones now. Now, our scare zones are a little bit easier just because, and there's less to really talk about.
No, they're scary zones.
But it's scare zones. It's not really storyline wise. It's not really stuff you have to pick from. But I think that obviously we'll just start with the heavy hitters of where in the park it is, in that Central Park. And this is obviously one of the, you know, the fan favorite areas. You know, we get all the trees, you get the lighting, you can really control the fog, and the ability to control the fog leads
It's
me
important
to
for this one.
this one, and we're going to be doing the Mist over in the Central Park area, which, you know, there's really not going to be much to it. You might be able to add more than the fact that we get to control the mist. You get to have the creatures.
So I know
walk
that
around, stuff like
initially it's kind of like, well, it's just nothing but a bunch of mist, but you with sounds and you could do like
heavy pumped fog.
lots of fog, but then also have like scare actors that are in costume, almost like playing like a leg to a bigger monster, so
Yeah.
it looks like there's a bigger monster coming at
Above you, and
you don't realize it. And I think with that one it would be a lot of overload when it comes to sensory. Like it's hard to see, lots of weird sounds. You have like the weird flying monsters, kind of like you hear those fly by your head and everything. You put the speakers in the right
you
way.
yep. And you can even have stuff like going up and down through the tree areas, and
Yeah.
like rustling the leaves. You know, it's really a sensory thing, and it's going to be more. And it's one of those things where like you'll have to have a couple characters in there every now and then to throw people off, because you don't want it to be a constant of like you're scared but nothing happens. So every now and then something has to happen to like pull you back into that reality. But a lot of the scare, you know, is like sometimes I think Dwight Schrute said this in The Office. Like sometimes the best snowball is not a snowball at all. He's not throwing one. So like sometimes the best scare is not really the scare, it's that tension leading up to the scare, and this would kind of get you to that point.
Yeah.
You want to kick off to the next one?
Yeah. So we'll follow that kind of same direction, and we'll go up what we call Hollywood Boulevard, but where Vanity Ball was.
Yeah.
This would be like our musical
Sort of area,
sort of
stage
area.
showy.
Kind of like our, like obviously not our actual stage show, but kind of like a interactive show.
Yeah.
With music and people that are
Much like how Crypt TV was this year.
Yeah.
There's, you know, actors coming in and coming out.
So this one's gonna be based on Sweeney Todd. I think it's one of those properties I'm surprised they haven't tried to get yet, and maybe they have, but very good movie. If you're into like dark musicals or gothic musicals, I think it would work if you have like a bunch of different scare actors just from different characters from that movie. Have Sweeney Todd up on top of one of the stages doing like a haircut or whatever, and like you cut the person's head off.
Pulling the ribbon, having like the ribbon as the blood or whatever.
Yeah, so there's a lot of theatrical ways you can do it and kind of play it off as like an operatic style.
Yeah,
like you said, like, you know, ribbon for blood. And
yeah,
like, just be very dancey,
very theater
with
theater.
it. Yeah,
very theater-esque.
Not a lot of thought went into it, but I think
it's
I think
cool.
it would fit.
It's cool characters.
It's good music too.
It's
I
good
mean, it
design.
works.
You can have the music going, and there's a couple different settings, and it would be like a mixture between Crypt TV and what we saw last year in Eddie's Revenge, where you'd have like multiple set pieces, and like Crypt TV I felt like was more interactive than the Eddie's people because they were smaller stages and they were just kind of like photo oppy.
Yeah.
Versus Crypt TV where it was like scene oriented, especially with the look-see.
Right.
Where they kind of like trade in, trade out set times and stuff like that. But it's something that could easily be done there. Now, kind of continuing that in through the entrance area, where this year 30 Years, 30 Fears was. But this year we're going to be doing, this is going to be pretty much letting you know what you're in for. This is like a welcome to the 2000s or whatever. But this is a Bring It On Zombies / like High School Musically zombie thing. Now we know we zombies are overdone, but the Bring It On like zombie cheerleaders, like Bring It On, like that set off a chain reaction of those 2000s like teen high school movies. I mean, just look at Not Another Teen Movie that just pokes fun at all of them. The American Pies, the Van Wilder, all that stuff that was like
Big in the 90s, actually.
that it was 90s, and that's again like where it's those that bleeds into the 2000s where it was that weird time.
Right.
But just zombify all the stupid 2000s high schooly style era, and it'd just be kind of like a welcome to kind of thing. It would just let you know what you're in for. That scare zone's always tough because like there's really not space for big elaborate things except like the tall staging area, and it's tricky to get full actors, and it's mostly used as like a small roaming area. But we've seen zombie cheerleaders before. They're usually a hit. Bring it, put it more as like that Bring It On vibe, and like give them bubble gum to snap and give them those bleach blonde highlights, and
Right.
you're off and running into the 2000s.
Right.
You can give some people some really low cut jeans. Those are the 2000s jeans that, for whatever reason, was deemed fashion at the time. But
well, I mean,
it worked for Christina Aguilera. And
hey,
At the time.
I'd rather low cut jeans than mom jeans. But,
Yeah.
Whatever. And then going from that way,
this is our tricky
we'll follow
one.
along into the New York. This one's a little bit of a stretch, but it was
definitely a stretch.
It was definitely part of the 2000s cultural phenomenon.
I feel like we'd be like remiss if we didn't at least mention it.
So anybody that
loosely tying this
anybody
in.
that like was like consciously living in the 2000s probably had a MySpace. So
Tom was your best friend.
we would probably do something along those lines, like social media, MySpacey, where you had the controller with search and seek and destroy, but instead of there being like a big like robot trying to take over the earth, it's gonna be a bunch of Toms running around taking pictures of you, and maybe having your face show up on like a scary like I don't know, on the board or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I would like give them like instead of like the weapons, you'd have more social media aspect of like the sidekicks, the flip phone, stuff like that. I mean, they wouldn't be practical. They'd have actual technology in them from today, where if you click a picture, it's almost like a live casting of like some restaurants have like the take a picture and use the hashtag whatever, and we put you here. It would kind of like bring you up to the board, and they'd take a quick picture of you scared or whatever. It goes to shows on the screen. And it's almost like he's absorbing your powers and creating fake profiles and creating an army, a social army.
Zombies.
Yeah,
social media zombies.
Something in that sense where it's going to be a very loose concept, but we would find ways to make it a very interactive one. It's definitely not scary. We get that. Scare zones are hard to be scary. I feel like, unless you're like one of the teens that runs around and is like screaming in hysterics when you see somebody 10 feet away from you that's coming towards you with a chainsaw with no blade, then it's not really scary. But they can be fun.
Yeah,
and this would be a very fun interactive style one.
Yeah, it'd be goofy. I mean, to fit the theme, it makes sense. Wouldn't be a lot of scares.
No.
But, I mean, it'd still be kind of fun. It'd be a fun little theme to play off.
And there'd be a fun way to tie in, if we could, because we talked about this earlier, and then another thing that we decided to leave off because like we just couldn't find a way to intertwine it into something like actual would be like the whole music sharing saga between Napster,
Like Kazaa.
LimeWire, Kazaa, any of those things. But like, I mean, you could even have your pseudo Tom figure have that like Napster-y cat logo-y thing kind of as a head. It's a very loose basis, but it's something that we have to. It'd be insane, but we have to at least include MySpace, Napster stuff in this. If we're doing a 2000s map of a 2000s event, this would somehow, we'd have to tie this in at some way, shape, or form.
Right.
Now, lastly, we have our show left. Now, this would be kind of, I feel like they sort of did this, and I didn't get to see it, so I could be very wrong, but this would be very, I think, SeaWorld's Hello Scream did something like this, but this would be, instead of Stomp, it would be Stomp the Graveyard.
Yeah, instead of Stomp the Yard, it's
the Graveyard. Instead of Stomp the Yard, it's Stomp the Graveyard. So it'll be the show where Nightmare Fuel is. I know that in theory that Fear Factor stage is coming down. We might have to, but in our world that we're living in, there is still a stage show. Whether it's there or somewhere else, the stage show for ours would be Stomp the Graveyard. And again, just a musical number, graveyard, gothic style, but with musics of the 2000s. You're talking your NSYNCs, your Britney Spears, your Christina Aguilera's, and stuff like that. We talked about, if you listen back to our 90s episode, we did like a Zomboys band zone where it was like zombie boy bands. But like a lot of those bands were like late 90s. I mean, the No Strings Attached from NSYNC was in the 2000s. So like we're really bleeding decades here because they do overlap a lot. But this would be your true music homage of like the 2000s world, and tying in Stomp the Yard as like your characters, I guess you would say.
It'd be a fun like musical based stage show with a bunch of dancers that are dressed like demons or zombies or whatever.
It's stupid, but it's fun. But that's our 2000s event.
Boy, that was
it's a tough stretch.
That was like pulling teeth.
It's a
that was tough
stretch right there.
Oh, that was tough.
Excuse me. So let's kind of run through a list real quick before we say what we did. I'll kind of run through our honorable mentions and like why we did or didn't choose these things. And obviously there's a lot more that we left off the list that it's not even going to be on this list as well. But we left off Saw, obviously, that they've done Saw in the past. So we mentioned that. We left off the Final Destination movies. It's just kind of a hard thing to translate. Death is coming for you. You skip the line, break the chain, whatever. It's just kind of tough to put that into a visual aspect of a house. Orphan from 2009, we skipped over that. That could probably make a good house, but it's been a long time since I've seen that, and even then I don't know if I was fully paying attention. Trick or Treat we skipped. Obviously they've used that in the past. Cloverfield, which is a really fun kaiju style movie, but again, when the characters are kaiju level and like bigger than buildings and landscapes, it's kind of tougher to portray that. It's almost like in the Stranger Things 2 house where they had that big monster. It's one good set piece, but it's tough to carry that throughout the whole house. We skipped Drag Me to Hell. We skipped The Hills Have Eyes
remake. Is that a 2000s movie?
What?
Drag Me to Hell?
2009.
Oh, okay, yeah. So
snuck in there.
Tail end of the decade.
Just snuck in there. Dawn of the Dead, 28 Days Later, which...
Again, tons of remakes.
It's just remakes.
It was like the
remake
year.
Zombies.
This is the decade of remakes.
Shaun of the Dead, which would be fun, but they did it at Hollywood as a house.
Yeah, and how many zombie... Like how many?
You can only do so many things, especially if it's 1 year.
There's always going to be something zombies, but...
Yeah. You don't want to do multiples, and that's what we tried to do with our list. And when we recap it, hopefully you see that we had some sort of a variety at least. The Descent, Dead Silence we skipped because that was the house at times. The Devil's Rejects, we skipped that. That was a house. Hatchet, which would have been a cool deep cut style house. 1408, which would have been a fun house. I love that movie. I think that's a drastically overrated or underrated movie.
It's an underrated Stephen King movie.
It's fun. And then I had really stupid 2000 things that were just pop culture that are in no way, shape, or form could have been a house. Maybe it could have if I had more time, but I did write down Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston. I did write down Angelina Jolie and Billy Bob Thornton. Eminem, the Marshall Mathers LP, iPod. Heelys from Hell. Maybe we'll work on that. Would be a house full of people on just Heelys. Scooby-Doo. The Scooby-Doo live action remake with Matthew Lillard once again. And Dexter. Dexter would have been a fun little like serial killer style house, but I don't think it's that scary.
Nah, and that one, I don't know, that'd be kind of tough.
Yeah. So let's. Do you want to run down the houses we picked, and then I'll hit the scare zones?
Yeah. So again, just real quick, the houses, just as like a reiteration, Exorcism of Emily Rose. We'll do like a J horror compilation house, a Jeepers Creepers house, the My Chemical Romance Black Parade ish gothic style horror house, 13 Ghosts, which I have to go back and rewatch again. It's been a while.
It's worth it.
Our Survivor / reality TV house, our house based on Scary Movie, M. Night Shyamalan, because we got to give that man some love, Cabin Fever, and then of course our Home Invasion, The Stranger's House.
Yep. And then for the scare zones, we're doing The Mist, Sweeney Todd, Bring It On Zombies, and the MySpace. Did we skip? Oh, we only did 4 scare zones.
I think we missed a scare zone, but it's okay.
That's okay. That's okay. We're doing just the 4. And then the show would be Stomp the Graveyard. I can't believe we missed that for the scare zones.
I think, yeah.
I think I deleted one and then brought one back in. You know what? Heelys from Hell.
There you go. We'll do
you just
Heelys
got
from Hell.
promoted to Scare Zone, and you are going to be placed over in San Francisco. Everyone's just going to be scooting around over there. Heelys from Hell, congratulations, you made it. Well, that is our show. That is our quote-unquote spec map for our 2000s decade. I don't know what we're doing next week yet. We haven't really figured it out. These off-season months come together really last minute. So we're always like, man, what should we do? What we should do? And then 2 days before we decide what we're gonna do. So it's a little bit trickier to kind of promote and get out there. But we're gonna work on something. We'll get that going. But follow us on YouTube, subscribe, like, share, whatever we have to do to hit that YouTube algorithm to get that stuff out there. We are new to this whole YouTube branch area, so be sure to tell everyone about us. We're gonna be bringing you full content, HHN/horror style stuff all throughout the year. And we got some good stuff cooking. I know we got some off-season months ahead of us, but like I mentioned on last week's episode, we did sign up for the Spooky Empire, so we will be there in June.
We did.
So we're working right now already on getting some stuff done. We're going to be doing a lot of giveaways and raffles. You know, when we do this table, it's more for publicity than it is to make actual cash. It'll be nice to get some extra money.
We're just going to hang out, say hi.
But we're going to have some stuff
fans.
there. We're working our way towards getting some merch. We're going to do some goodie bags. We have one of our friends, Alicia, who is actually created, we showed you last week, but this is our Fear and Beer bottle opener. But she's going to be helping us at the table as well. She's going to be selling her own little goods that she provides on Etsy. And we got, I think my mom's actually going to be doing some paintings and stuff too. So we're going to have some stuff to sell that you can purchase that will help cut into the deficit of purchasing the table and go towards, I don't know, maybe our HHN tickets or beer. Who knows? One of the two.
We might do maybe do an on location episode too.
Yeah, we might get a little something going there. But until next time, this is Nick.
And this is Seamus.
Ehans.
This place is cursed. Cursed. It's got a death curse.
You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare.
And again, I would just like to thank Vampire Stepdad for letting us use his music for our intro and outro music. So if you would, just go check him out. Spotify, Facebook. Again, that is Vampire Stepdad.